For Greene, the decades that Epstein spent eluding justice for exploiting and sexually assaulting countless girls and young women while amassing a fortune, and the seeming efforts by the government to cover up the injustice, represents everything wrong with Washington, she told me.
The New York Times has just published an investigative report described as sending shockwaves through the MAGA movement. According to Greene, Trump personally called her at her congressional office, speaking so loudly that staff nearby could hear the conversation. During the call, Trump did not mention the victims, did not talk about the law or justice, but focused on a single concern, that the situation would harm people close to him. The line Greene quoted, "My friends will get hurt," became a key detail in the entire investigation. That remark, Greene said, revealed the real reason why the Epstein Files, despite being promised repeatedly during the campaign, were never seriously pushed for release by Trump. When Greene proposed a symbolic but politically powerful gesture, inviting Epstein's victims to the Oval Office so Trump could hear directly from them, Trump reacted angrily, saying those people had done nothing to deserve such an honor. Greene said that was the last direct conversation between the two. Greene said Trump had exploited voters' anger toward a corrupt elite during the campaign. But once in power, he prioritized protecting his personal relationships with that same elite. She acknowledged that for years she had ignored or rationalized these warning signs, from Trump's past personal relationship with Epstein to Trump's public praise of Epstein and information connected to Mar-a-Lago. Trump's outright refusal to side with the victims, Greene said, marked the final line. From that point on, the story was no longer a personal clash between Trump and a Republican lawmaker, but a reflection of a broader problem within the MAGA movement. The Epstein Files became a test of Trump's anti-elite promises, and the outcome showed that when forced to choose, Trump sided with people who had power and connections, not with the voters and victims he claimed to represent. The rupture between Donald Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene did not stop with the Epstein Files. It quickly spread to how Trump exercised power after returning to the White House. According to the New York Times investigation, Greene said she increasingly realized that Congress, while nominally controlled by the Republican Party, in practice operated under direct orders from the White House. Greene stated bluntly that House Speaker Mike Johnson was no longer an independent legislative leader, but an executor of Trump's will. She said many Republican lawmakers were angry about this situation but afraid to speak out, fearing they would become the next target. Greene said this was not normal coordination between branches of government, but a serious deviation from the principle of separation of powers. Congress, designed to check the executive, had instead become an extension of the presidency. Greene described meetings with Trump in the Oval Office as threatening, where lawmakers who expressed dissent were singled out as examples to intimidate the rest. She compared how Trump treated her in one meeting to punishing the most obedient person so that everyone else would be afraid and fall in line. That control, Greene said, extended beyond the Epstein Files to major legislative packages. She admitted that she had voted for a significant bill without realizing it contained a provision preventing states from imposing restrictions on artificial intelligence for 10 years. When she discovered it and confronted the White House, the response was Trump's anger. Greene said that was when she realized campaign slogans about protecting voters and fighting elites no longer mattered when they conflicted with the interests of major donors and the tech industry, alongside tensions in Congress. Greene said she began confronting economic realities in her own district. Through voter meetings and industry construction reports, she noticed private equity funds buying up entire residential neighborhoods, driving housing prices sharply higher. Her adult daughter told her their health insurance premiums would double if Obamacare subsidies were not extended. Greene said these realities directly contradicted Trump's repeated claims that cost of living concerns were merely fabrications by Democrats. Greene said she began to worry that the MAGA movement was drifting away from voters' core concerns. Instead of focusing on housing prices, health insurance, and living costs, movement leaders were consumed by internal power struggles and politicized disputes over the Epstein Files. She questioned why an issue involving abuse victims had been turned into a political weapon, while urgent economic problems facing ordinary people were being ignored. Against that backdrop, the criticism of Trump from outside the MAGA movement continued to grow. United Auto Workers President Shawn Fain publicly stated that Trump is a billionaire who represents billionaires, not workers. Notably, these criticisms were no longer confined to the opposition, according to Greene. Even within the Republican Party, more and more people are recognizing that Trump does not serve the interests of ordinary voters, but prioritizes protecting a wealthy and powerful network. Greene said the silence of many lawmakers is not because they fail to see the problem, but because they fear the political consequences of openly confronting Trump. In the end, Greene turned inward to reassess her own past role. She admitted she had been part of a confrontational political culture, had engaged in personal attacks, and had encouraged division. Greene said personal upheavals and political pressure led her to act out of anger rather than reason. Publicly apologizing for her past actions left her isolated within the MAGA movement, where a culture of never admitting mistakes is treated as the norm. According to the investigation, the Epstein Files became the focal point of all these contradictions. They were not just about an unreleased set of documents, but a test of Trump's core promises to fight elites and protect the vulnerable. When faced with that choice, Trump, according to Greene and other interviewees, chose to protect his friends and his powerful relationships. In the end, the rupture between Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene is portrayed as a sign of deeper fractures within the MAGA movement. When even some of the most loyal allies publicly turn away, the story is no longer about a personal feud, but a warning about the growing gap between campaign promises and how power is actually exercised. In that picture, the Epstein Files do not merely expose an old scandal, but clearly reveal who is protected, who is abandoned, and who is truly being served in the current system of power.